the Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that He used to create the heavens and the earth, was the Hebrew language.
Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding Him hard.
What are those mysteries?
The truth of your book and the truth will make you free. The Hebrew and Bible Academy, you're invited.
Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, shalom, shalom. How are you doing? Come on in.
The East is where we're from.
I got my camera back.
12 tribes
Of Israel.
721 BC.
Yes, yes, yes. The Assyrian king, he took us down, we fell.
With the great escape we went.
Through the Euphrates. Blessings, blessings.
The Lord held the water still.
To a land where no mankind dwelt.
To a land where no mankind dwelt. We went.
The 12 tribes of Israel.
The 12 tribes of Israel. So we be.
Manasseh, the Cubans, Ephraim from Puerto Rico. Turn that off.
The Lord is calling back.
Israel.
From Panama, the North American Indians, Simeon, the Dominicans,
Our highest gathering, Israel.
the Arabs and Africans told us.
Black and brown people. Shalom, brothers and sisters. I'm Elder Ricard Shiar of the Gathering of Christ Church, here with your Patreon update before we segue over to or transition over to Patreon. Blessings to my brothers and sisters throughout the four corners of the earth. And again, I thank our loyal Patreonies, which are patience while we were away at the Feast of Tabernacles. But yes, we have a good discussion for you, brothers and sisters, today. We have a great discussion for you all today on Patreon. Diving into this topic, America is imploding from the inside. Okay, folks, it's total treason, and on top of that, espionage. What if the governments of the earth, or America in particular, is being ran from the outside of America? Well, hey, it's going to affect us nonetheless, and of course, it leads to the prophecy of Babylon the Great falling. Okay, now before I go in, as you can see here, let me put this up here real quick so you all can see it. All right, 1 second. And come on in real quick. Come on before Patreon. Blessings. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the phone number up on Patreon, okay, when it's time for you all to call in. Okay, even though this is the old lower third we were using because we have to update the donation information, the phone number still works. 515-605-9327. So I'll put that up when it's time to talk with our brothers and sisters on the other side of this through our Patreon broadcast. Okay, if this interests you, just you can. It only costs you $5 a month to be a part of the Patreon. It's Patreon/AGC A Gathering 144 if you want to be be a part of the discussion weekly with our Patreon, one-on-one with elders, okay? Now, jumping right in before I make a few announcements, okay? Well, let me make this announcement first and foremost. Thank you, Elder Dell. The next theme that we'll have in our academy will be the fall of the last empire. The whole theme will be the fall of the empire and prophecies concerning it for the academy coming next. So if this interests you, we are, I guess, in week 8 or 9 right now. We only have about 2 to 3 weeks left in this academy. So if you want to enroll, go to historytimes.org, and November 3rd, after November 3rd, you can get into that academy, and we'll be dealing with that running right up into the election. So you don't want to miss the next academy. The fall of the last empire will be the theme for the academy. Okay? So please be a part of this. Go to historytimes.org. And hey, you'll find out it's nothing like it when it comes to Bible prophecy, news, all of that, as well as lessons, fully in-depth lessons, well studied. And it will give you the understanding of what's going on in the earth real time outside of the false doctrines that are out there, okay? Now, jumping right in, go to historytimes.org to enroll. And right now, until we get things all set up, we reshuffling things over here when it comes to receiving donations as far as the lower thirds that you would see on these videos. At the bottom, you see it says gatheringofchrist.org/donate. gatheringofchrist.org/donate. You can always just go there. And if you don't have Cash App, it's fine, because right now Cash App is acting out. It gives you alternatives to actually donating to this broadcast or the church right here. Okay? Now, before I segue over, someone says, we found the wake up. Elder, if one is baptized member of GOCC, but flee to a country that GOCC has established a church that is a safe location written in Isaiah 11, will that be an issue? Okay, great question. Anything you do on your own without elder guidance will be an issue. Okay? Will be an issue. Because you didn't give us the opportunity to get to understand what our relationships are and what it means to be a part of a body that's in order. Okay? Before anyone talking about fleeing and going anywhere, we spearheaded that whole teaching. Okay? So the whole deal is, through the Spirit of the Almighty, if you trust us, you would actually flee into a church and be guided by a trusted person with tenure to guide you wherever you would need to go, especially if you're going to where we already have churches. So if you go without guidance, absolutely that's an issue. Okay? But guess what? If you do it on your own, you're grown. You have the full power to do so. But keep in mind, any choices or consequences that comes from your choice is on you. Okay? Don't ask us to pick up the pieces. Don't try to claim, the Most High said do it, and this is why I did it, but now I'm dealing with all of these unintended consequences that later you'll put on us. No. If you don't follow us from the beginning, don't ask us to clean up whatever you develop on the outside of the guidance. Okay? That's just the way it is. All right? Now, jumping right in. Jumping right in before segueing. America is imploding from the inside. Folks, the writing has been on the wall for a long time. It's been on the writing has been on the wall for a long time, but many people are confused to how America would eventually fall altogether. Okay. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. Okay. The reason why most people are totally ignorant to what's going on in the earth under a stupor is because they have learned through modern science and false religion, they have learned how to destroy the psyche of those, let me put it out, when there's no insult, playing on the pride of those who claim to be Americans. Okay? Playing on the pride. Well, we know everything. We think we're smarter than everyone else and all of that. And I'm going to talk about that when it comes to the proud psyche of an American. They played on that and have deceived us into not understanding that America has fallen. Okay? And I'm going to talk about that and go into some areas of how they were able to accomplish that. But before doing so, let me read this real quick, what God says. And one deceptive tactic they put out there was to make people believe or make people think that the Bible prophecies don't matter. That people in this earth, born in this earth in our current time, are smarter than our forefathers who believed in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They have deluded people into believing that if you believe whatever you would like, that's on par with the true doctrine and how every man and woman were meant to understand God from the beginning. And I'm going to tell you this. They made people believe that whatever you think concerning God is okay. Whatever you believe when it comes to how to show reverence or obedience to that God that you made up yourself, that's okay. When there's only one path. I don't care what the Satanists tell you. There's only one path. There's only one path. Okay? 1 second. Let's read this real quick. And you're definitely not going to understand what's going on in America if you aren't versed in the Bible. Okay? You're definitely not going to understand what's going on in America. And it behooves everyone to understand exactly what's going on here. There's a judgment happening. Okay? And there's a great battle in the realm none of us can see between good and evil. Hold on, let me cut on this air con real quick. 1 second. There's a great battle between good and evil in the unseen world. We wrestle not with flesh and blood. But before I segue over, let me go over a few things that we'll be talking about real quick. When one go into the Bible states in Revelation 18, after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a great voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils. When it says the habitation of devils, American citizenry believes in every ancient pagan god and or goddesses that were ever known to man. Superstition, witchcraft, libations, praying to the elders. Not the elders, praying to, and you shouldn't do that either, praying to the ancestors. Witchcraft, sorcery, astrology, everything that God said that we were to what? Walk away from. America upholds. Magic, witchcraft, debauchery. And the Most High says it's fallen because why? In a nutshell, the Bible is talking about the immorality of its citizens. A lot of us normally think of the construct of a government and not realize a government is only as strong as its citizenry, its people. So when it talks about Babylon the Great is fallen, it's more so focusing on the demoralization of the people and the choices the people are making to turn their backs on God. And it's become a habitation of devils. And the folks that have used modern medicine and others that will allow people to become hosts for demons. I don't know about you, but I would never take anything that says on the back of the bottle or the back of the capsule holder that states, well, if you take this, if you have suicidal thoughts, please contact your doctor as soon as possible. I don't know about you, but that sounds like you're popping a devil. See? And this is how diluted this world has become. That even if they tell you that you're taking something that will allow you to harm yourself, you'll take it anyway. Why? Something is going on with your mind. You have been separated from God. You've been separated from reality. And see, they need everyone in this mind state. Why? In this mind state of total degradation and depression, because obviously they'll do what? They'll give you something that will have you not realize how grave your current status is, your current status is, your current position in earth is, and what's going on with you. They'll give you something that will only put a Band-Aid over what's really happening, because they know the majority of people cannot face their current reality. The current reality is that this fairy tale place this Disney place called America was a facade the whole time. And when most people realize that they can't change what their life has become and what it will be, these people go into serious depression. And that's where they want you. But our God is saying there's a way out outside of modern day science. That you can't pop a pill that could mask your reality. We must face whatever's coming. Now, the enemy would rather say you're depressed. Take something so that you don't even have to think about what's really going on in the world. They'll say pop something, and therefore you'll be in la la land and have no care in the world concerning your current place. But guess what? But when all that stuff wear off, your life is still your reality. So this is why they're trying to mask everything through science and say pop something so that we cannot actually realize or deal with our current status with them doing what? Pulling the rug up from under everyone. Now, the Bible states we must be sober-minded. So you can understand how to what? Pray on the right side of this war. Be a strength against evil on the right side of this war. Let me finish reading here. I didn't come to preach tonight. I have a broadcast to deal with. But I guess I can't help but preach, right? Let me go back to where I was. The angel cried with a mildly strong voice, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become habitation of devils. Everyone out here are dealing with devils, spirits, witchcraft, idolatry, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. And I'm going to tell you why it's fallen, because there's no longer any strong resistance against evil anymore. And you know that when you have a citizenry, you have a country who would allow scientists to get their grubby little dirty hands on our children. That's how you know the country is broken. When children are no longer protected, when they're convincing you through psychology to transition your own son or daughter and using someone like Dwayne Wade as the face for it, you know that America is broken. You try to go into the Middle East and try to publicly make it a law to do something to their young men who were born to be the protectors of that nation. That's how you know America is broken. And I know a lot of people out there. In America, whether you be a right-wing, white, gun-toting constitutionalist, a lot of people in America thinks, well, okay, we don't care that they're transitioning children as long as they don't touch ours. But this is what you don't understand. If they do that to any American citizen, it won't be too long before they're doing it to your children. So it's what's allowed under law that becomes law. So if you think them doing this stuff in these inner cities and what's affecting our people isn't going to cross over the tracks into the suburbs or into other areas, you got another thing coming. Because when you send your children to a school, these liberal satanic schools, guess what? Unless they are fully grounded in God, they don't come back the same. And what's wrong? Let's read it. For all nations, all races of nations have drunk of the wine of her fornication. And that's what we see going on in America right now, a free-for-all, where all of the ancient Babylonian nations have come over to the shores with their opportunity to fornicate with America, to go into the inner cities. And if these people are evil, debaucherous, if they're dealing with evil where they come from, it's going to be a free-for-all when they're in the inner cities. Where what? Where there's no consequences like it is where they come from for violating children, for violating women. See, they can't violate women or just go on a strip in some of their countries and treat their own daughters like trash. But they can do that here in America, and that's what's going on right now. They're pressing all of these crazy freaks within our country, and next thing you know, we're going to hear about more people going missing, more black market organ harvesting, and all this wickedness that wasn't allowed where they were. That's right. It's right here, not on the doorsteps. It's right here in America. And there's nothing that anyone can do about it. And it doesn't matter whether or not it's Kamala or Trump voted in. Let me make that clear. That makes no difference. If you let tens of millions of people in the country within a 4-year span, there's no way you can clear that up automatically. That they would disseminate themselves throughout the country and hide themselves to totally destroy what's left of it. And that's what Babylon the Great is fallen. That's what the Bible states. And folks, what we're living is exactly what the Bible is stating. This is what the fall of Babylon looks like. An implosion, an intentional implosion by the government on the inside. Now, believe it or not, folks, the only obstacle in the way of finishing what they would like to do, because they've already turned out your sons and destroyed your daughters. Okay? And I'm going to tell you that, folks, I'm talking about a very, very patient. They were very patient in this process. Because in order for God to take his spirit off of a nation and protect the people, those people I'm going to tell you, those particular people are covered in sin to a degree where the Most High is telling the angels to back off when it comes to hedging or protecting these people. So it was very patient how they were able to get to the children to demoralize the nation, turning America inside out. Starting with demoralizing. We thought that America would become more spiritual, letting Hindus over, letting Arabs over. Well, folks, you never visited where these people come from. We thought that they would be buttoned up Muslims like the Muslims that we see with the Nation of Islam. Folks, Nation of Islam Muslims are more stand-up and moral than any Muslims you can see in the world if you've traveled. We thought we were accepting something that could help our people, not realizing we were letting in the devil. People can say what they want about that Bible, but we were better off with that Bible not having the knowledge that we have obtained right now. Because at least we all believed on one book and we all believed in one Christ. We were better off before letting all of these Gentiles all amongst us under the guise of black and or brown. That's an infiltration. Now, there's only one obstacle. There's only one obstacle that's in the way of them coming after the so-called Americans who would normally withstand them. There's only one obstacle that's in the way. And you know what that is? The fact that American citizens still have the right to bear arms. But check out what's about to happen. Washington Post. I'm going to cover this on the other side. Washington Post. Right? Listen to this. 1 second. Yeah, listen to this good. Washington Post. Democracy in America. Scarred by violence. Lawmakers plan for possible mass casualty event. They're already drilling for this. Why? Because they can no longer conceal their wickedness and deceit from its citizenry anymore. The majority of people in America realize that they have been betrayed by their elected officials and starting to realize that this progressive plan towards a new world order is sin and death against anybody who's trying to be right according to God. And we're starting to realize that these people aren't elected by us, aren't in the interest of the people, but they've been what? Selected under a demonic cabal to totally decimate its citizenry. But there's one issue. America has the right to bear arms. So now they're seeding and putting this out there. This was out there 6 minutes ago. Right? It says 6 minutes, right? Someone was listening to this, but anyway. Congress must ensure it can continue to grow, to govern in the aftermath, the aftermath, of mass violence. Now, check this out for those who claim they're Democrat or Republican. A bipartisan group of House members argue. So this is across both aisles that they're talking about this. A matter of fact, this was posted September 19th, 6 a.m. in the morning. Amy Gardner and Jacqueline Alamany of the Washington Post. Now check out what they're seeding in the mind of our people to actually brace themselves for. Imagine the unthinkable. A mass shooting of members of Congress that leaves a large swath of the country unrepresented and shifts the balance of political power in Washington. So they're already seeding the minds of people that something as big is going to happen. I don't know why they put this right before the election and put it out there that many of your elected officials, quote unquote, might get attacked before the election or during the election, where there'll be no representation for American citizens. See, this is what happens when they realize no one really believes what they're dealing with anymore. So I'm just asking questions. Will there be a situation that goes down where they go underground like those bunkers they have in Washington and others, but give an event on Earth to have us believe that what they're stating is what's really happening? And if they're absent under a mass casualty scenario, then who will be running the government? Right? And then if that's the case, if there's no representation, of course they would need what? They would need to bring in armies to what? To make sure there's law and order in case of such mayhem. And they would have to make sure that what? The American citizenry, well, the majority of the American citizenry, starting in the inner cities, are unarmed. Listen to this. In the current political environment, such an outbreak of violence is not as unthinkable as it used to be. According to the bipartisan collection of House members, the attempted assassination of members at a congressional baseball team practice in 2017, the violent attack on the U.S. Capitol in January 6, 2021, a dramatic spike in threats against members, and most recently, a possible second assassination attempt on Donald Trump, highlight the need for Congress to ensure it can govern in the aftermath of mass violence, they said. So it doesn't matter whether or not it's Republicans or the Democrats, they're together on this particular amendment. And what they're not telling you is that there's a 28th Amendment that was presented by Gavin Newsom that would lead to what? The disarmament, if you look at the major detail, the fine print, an event that would lead to foreign armies, if need be, if they're not here already, to come in to make sure that there's no scenarios of what you would call assault weaponry that can threaten the current government that's under distress. Huh? To address, let me get this mess out of here. To address such scenario, these 4 House members, 2 Republican and 2 Democrats, are pushing an unlikely solution, a constitutional amendment that would allow members to be replaced quickly in the event of mass casualty event. But they would be replaced by who? What does Congress and the Senate foresee? Will they be replaced by foreigners? I mean, they're already adjusting us to actually have someone lead the country who was born in India, father has ambiguous ties to being a slave owner, his family in Jamaica, only to be what? Raised in Canada, to pop up as a sorority in an HBCU. They've already adjusted us to be led by a foreigner. Listen to what I'm showing you here. But what they're trying to do is undermine the Constitution by saying we need a new amendment to where if the people's representatives are actually offed, that we have an emergency replacement outside of the people that we believe were chosen by us. This is the Washington Post, folks. So what are they planning, or what's going on before the election? In addition, ensuring uninterrupted representation of constituencies, because you don't have representation, well, guess what? The amendment would discourage attempts to use violence to sway the balance in the House. So you have some crazies that are in position that would think, psychopaths probably, that would think, well, since the gig is up, and we see what's going on with the satanic Democrat Party that was actually put in place to actually keep us from ever rising. Well, now we see the gig is up, and they can't use the left-right anymore. They was like, well, you know what? We're going to implode the whole thing and then bring in the New World Order. We're just going to implode the whole thing. That's how Babylon the Great fall altogether, when there's no morality. There's straight deceit from the top down. And then what better way to destroy the people than make it where there's no representation at all for them? And then we'll draft that into law. See, we'll draft that into law where if your representation gets replaced, we're going to replace anybody from whoever we choose. Right? Now, I'm not going to go into all of this, but let me show you something real quick before I segue over. They're trying to bring forth, brothers and sisters, a 28th Amendment. No one is talking about what this means. And they so happens to have under the Naval lab, the Constitution, is if they're looking to actually follow the Constitution. No, the Constitution has been their obstacle. That's been their obstacle. But when you go down here, folks, check this out, folks. When you go down here, if you will, let me blow this up. Command plus. When you go down here, look at this. Autism, ADHD, asthma, post-traumatic PTSD, right? All of these so-called psychiatric issues, right? Food allergies, right? Autoimmune, thyroids, childhood cancers. They're claiming that this amendment will help solve most of the issues, but they first have to make sure that America is a what? A safe zone without the need of firearms. Now, how does all that culminate into, folks, the next stage in the New World Order when the Bible states the Babylon the Great is fallen is fallen? Well, if you're under one of these, you are easily controlled. You are easily controlled if you are, as they claim, under some type of psych meds or any type of physical ailments. These are people who are easily controlled as a citizenry. All right? Are y'all following me here? Now, I know I'm dealing in parts because I have to go over to Patreon to really break this down. But he had to break down us psychologically first, and then break down the family, and then put everyone on these certain types of things that would have them be easily controlled under what? A tyrannical, satanic government. See? But they had to break down. That's right. They had to break the family up. They had to make the majority of the citizenry anti-God. They had to also, hey, matter of fact, real quick, I was going to show this on the other side. I'm going to show you how patient they are. Tom Cruise, years ago, warned everyone what they were trying to do. How they would make America one great experiment. One great psychological experiment to be controlled psychologically if they could get the majority of people on some type of stuff. Fair use.
Coming up, the mood changes a bit. You're going to see a fiery Tom Cruise talk about his attack on Brooke Shields, antidepressants, and Ritalin for kids.
I've never agreed with psychiatry, ever. Before I was a Scientologist, I never agreed with psychiatry, and then when
He said, I never agree with psychology. A matter of fact, let me move the sound closer to you so you all can hear it. Listen to this real quick.
I started studying the history of psychiatry, I started realizing more and more.
Hold on. Listen.
With psychiatry, ever. Before I was a Scientologist, I never agreed with psychiatry, and then when I started studying the history of psychiatry, I started realizing more and more why I didn't agree with psychiatry. And as far as the Brooke Shields thing is, look, you gotta understand, I really care about Brooke Shields. I think here's a wonderful and talented woman, and I want to see her do well. And
fair use.
I know that psychiatry is a pseudoscience.
But Tom, if she said that this particular thing helped her feel better, whether it was the antidepressant or going to a counselor or a psychiatrist, isn't that enough?
Matt, you have to understand this.
Now listen to what they're saying. He's saying that this childhood star, Brooke Shields, shouldn't be on psychotropes. And what Tom Cruise is stating here, brothers and sisters, is what? The long-term effects. And he started going into, on different videos, the history behind it. And now, this guy right here, the corporate mouthpiece, is saying, well, she states it makes her feel better. See? Oh, but if it makes you feel better, does it change why you're actually depressed? Does it solve the core root issue? Or does it do something else? Kanye West, anyone?
Here we are today, where I talk out against drugs and psychiatric abuses of electric shocking people, okay, against their will, of drugging children with them not knowing the effects of these drugs. Do you know what Adderall is? Do you know Ritalin? Do you know now that Ritalin is a street drug? Do you understand that?
The difference is this was not against her will, though. But this wasn't against her.
Folks, this actual video was probably over 20 some odd years ago. He really cared about the young. A lot of these young stars are convinced to go on this stuff as a coping mechanism to actually mask or help them get through what they're seeing in the business. See? What they're really experiencing. under the dark cabal.
Now that Ritalin is a street drug, do you understand that?
The difference is this was not against her will, though. But this wasn't against her will.
Matt, I'm asking you a question.
I understand there's abuse of all of these things.
No, you see, here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry.
Woo! You don't know the history of psychology. Have you ever heard of Project Paperclip? Let me play it all the way through.
All of these things.
No, you see, here's the problem.
Fair
You
use.
don't know the history of psychiatry. I do.
Aren't there examples, and might not Brooke Shields be an example of someone who benefited from one of those drugs?
All it does is mask the problem, Matt. And if you understand the history of it, it masks the problem. That's what it does. That's all it does. You're not getting to the reason why. There is no such thing as a chemical imbalance.
So
in a body.
postpartum depression to you is
Matt,
kind of a little
don't-
psychological gobbledygook?
No, I did not say that.
I'm just asking, what would you call it?
Matt, that is the post. Now you're talking about two different things.
But that's what she went on the
No.
antidepressant for.
But what happens, the antidepressant, all it does is mask the problem. There's ways of vitamins and through exercise and various things. I'm not saying that that isn't real. That's not what I'm saying. That's an alteration of what I'm saying. I'm saying that drugs aren't the answer. That these drugs are very dangerous. They're mind-altering drugs. And there are ways of doing it without that so that we don't end up in a brave new world. The thing that I'm saying about Brooke is that there's misinformation, okay? And she doesn't understand the history of psychiatry. She doesn't understand in the same way that you don't understand it, man.
Do you examine the possibility that these things do work for some people? That yes, there are abuses. And yes, maybe they've gone too far in certain areas. Maybe there are too many kids on Ritalin. Maybe electric shock.
How many kids on Ritalin, Matt?
I'm just saying. But aren't there examples where it works?
Matt, you're glib. You don't even know what Ritalin is. If you start talking about chemical imbalance, you have to evaluate and read the research papers on how they came up with these theories, Matt. Okay? That's what I've done. And you go and you say, where's the medical test? Where's the blood test that says how much Ritalin you're supposed to get?
It's very impressive to listen to you because clearly you've done the homework and you know the subject.
And you should. And
Fair
you
use.
should do that also because just knowing people who are on Ritalin isn't enough. You should be a little bit more responsible in knowing
I'm not prescribing Ritalin, Tom, and I'm not asking anyone else to do it.
Well,
I'm
you are.
simply
You're saying no.
I know some people who seem to have been helpful.
But this is a very important issue. This is a
couldn't
very,
agree more.
you know what? And you're here on the Today Show,
Right?
And to talk about it in a way of saying, well, isn't it okay, and being reasonable about it when you don't know, and I do. I think that you should be a little bit more responsible in knowing what it is, because you communicate to people.
But you're all
Matt,
in the end all.
Matt, but here's the point. What is an ideal scene in life? Okay. Ideal scene is someone not having to take antipsychotic drugs.
I would agree.
Okay, so now you look at it and you go, okay, a departure from that ideal scene is someone taking drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you go, okay, what is the theory and the science behind that justifies that? Look, if I want to know something, I go and find out, because I don't talk about things that I don't understand. I'll say, you know what? I'm not so sure about that. I'll go find more information about it so I can come to an opinion based on the information that I have.
You're so passionate about it. And
I'm passionate about learning. I'm passionate about life, Matt.
Now, and don't you know, he caught a lot of flack. But then here it is, the 28th Amendment Project, and it's linked directly to the pharma key that he warned us about. Many warned us about years ago. How they would they would work towards breaking up the families by concentrating on what? Neuroscience. Getting the people sick, getting the people out of their minds, knowing that we were going into the awakening where God would begin to communicate with his people. He's like, this is wrong. He was warning people. Now, real quick before I go over, check this out. Like I mentioned earlier, unless you have the Bible, you'll never be able to do what? Connect the dots. You'll believe all things are relative, all things are individual scenarios, not realizing this is a mass plan, an evil plan that leads directly to the fall of Babylon. They had to get to the minds of our children. They had to. They had to. This is how you break down a nation that once believed in God, that holistically, on some level, had a fear of God and a love for his son. Listen to this. I'm going to Revelation real quick, the book of Revelation. I'm going to read this before we segue over. Blessed are they that do his commandments. And again, we have a lesson coming in for the next academy. The laws of God we must follow. That's going to be a complete lesson. The laws of God that cannot be compromised. There's no grace concerning these particular commandments. I'm going there in the next academy. And we're going to talk about the law of sin and death. Another law that came through the serpent. Without that law, they would not be able to destroy a people. And I'm talking about a people in the billions. They were able to destroy using pharmacy. Check this out. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. It's speaking of when Christ returns. For without are those who are not making it, the Bible say are dogs, are sorcerers, are whoremongers, are murderers, are idolaters, and whoso loveth and maketh a lie. Folks, everything that Christ said in the book of Revelation that will not make it into the kingdom is what the governments of the world have coming over the borders. Now check this out. Without the Bible, you would never understand. Check this out. All views. When you go to the 15th verse, where it states, don't forget, where it states, when it talks about sorcerers, it's Greek. 5333. You're speaking of about almost 2,000 years ago, folks. Almost 2,000 years ago. This was shown to John on the Isle of Patmos by Christ. It's what? Pharmakos. Pharmakos. Pharma. Let me pull it over so you all can see it. Let me get it into view so you all can see it. So you all can see it. Right there. Unless you have the Bible, you will never understand. Look. See that? Big pharma right there. That's the only way you can control and destroy so many people who would normally under God be really a standing army, a resistance against evil. If they can convince grown adults to hand over their children to science, that would be the end. The total end of a nation. That's another word. Sorcery, folks, is pharmacy. This is why when you're looking at TV and all that, guess what? Almost every other commercial is pharma. Okay? biowarfare, psychology. This is how they were able to get all of the enemies here without any resistance. And guess what? A lot of your people, you wonder why, folks. You might wonder that you've been talking to your family and others about the Bible and why they're looking at you like you have two heads. Why they'll shake their head and state as if they're listening. But really, you can tell that there's a wall between you and them. What they're not telling you privately is they probably went to get something to cope with their current status, their current place in life. And normally when they go to get that stuff, they're too proud to tell others they're on it. I'm going to tell you that right now, folks. A lot of people are depressed right now. And it's to a point where if you go to the doctor's office, even for something physical, they're asking you psychological questions. Are you depressed? Well, I'm going to add this to you. You notice that? Because the majority of people would be depressed right now, especially when there's no jobs, when all of the prices of everything has gone up. At the same time, they're letting people over the border to take any job that would give you a possibility for hope to have anything left. Of course, they're talking about drying up the money you already have. Of course you would be depressed. And they're given the coping mechanism. And folks, this is how they're pulling the plug on America. But the Bible states, folks, let me read it again. Let me read it once more. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have a right to the tree of life. See, if you follow God's commandments, and we're going to talk about that in the next academy, folks, you're hedged and protected from all they're doing right now. Because anything in the world, what they have set up in the world and how they have it established is meant to cause mental issues with a solution. Everything they have set up is a construct to get you on something. But unless you have the commandments are the balance that you can filter what they're actually peddling through. But if you don't have God, Christ, or the commandments, I don't care how smart you think you are. Okay? No matter how intelligent or in tune you think you are, they'll get you. They'll find a weak spot, and the next thing you know, yeah, that's right, you sitting there popping something. So I'm going into this. Let me show you what I'll be talking to on the other side. Talking about on the other side real quick. Let me go here. Real quick. Babylon the Great is over. They're already preparing the world for replacing Congress and senators by other people. And folks, the people that after this event that might happen during or before the election, the people to replace your elected officials may already be here. So I'm going to talk about that on the other side on Patreon and what to do now that we understand what's coming. Fair use.
A constitutional amendment has been proposed by members of the U.S. House to address a potential mass casualty event and discourage potential attacks and assassination attempts against U.S. lawmakers. The amendment would provide continued representation for American citizens in the event of a mass casualty incident by allowing House members to be quickly replaced.
And say they'll put all that in 22 seconds, and this was uploaded 23 hours ago. Listen to this again. Now that we're no longer going for these foreigners that they've put in front of us as representation from other places, they was able to fool us with the Obama thing, with all the ambiguity of where he came from. Now they can no longer fool us. They're talking about pulling the plug altogether. Once more.
A constitutional amendment has been proposed by members of the U.S. House to address a potential mass casualty event and discourage potential attacks and assassination attempts against U.S. lawmakers. The amendment would provide continued representation for American citizens in the event of a mass casualty incident by allowing House members to be quickly replaced.
Now, if you think that's conspiracy, no. They're drilling for this. The Washington Post reported this a week ago. Okay? All right. And we're going to talk about that on the other side. And guess what? It's an amendment that have already been presented by Gavin Newsom. The 28th Amendment, but what they're not talking about is the project attached to it. See, they do the Jedi mind trick. They'll have you out there talking that stupid Project 2025 with some think tank, some crap, some boogeyman garbage. That's nothing. That's no threat to anyone. While right up under our noses, they're presenting real amendments. The 28th Amendment. And what that means is a total dissolving of America. See? You can go to whitehouse.gov and see all of this. So they have you Project 2025. Oh, what Trump going to do with Project 2025? And guess what? Both sides, bipartisan, is planning to allow this amendment that draft this into law. Okay? So we're going to talk about that on the other side in about 5 minutes. We're going to go 1 hour. 1 hour. And what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way from Sandy Hook all the way up to where we are right now concerning laws that they're seeking the draft to unarm citizens in the event of a mass casualty event. And we're going to talk about that on the other side on Patreon. 1 hour. Okay? Now, 1 hour, we jumping right in. Right? 515-605-9327. Let's talk. Let's talk, okay? Let me make sure. 1 second. Blog. Where is it? Blog. 1 second. 1 second. Under broadcast. There it is there. There it is. One second. Fit the screen. Here's the phone number right here. 515-605-9327. I'll put this up strictly for the phone number only, okay? We're doing a lot to change the cash apps because right now there's an issue. And y'all know what's going on. They don't want no one supporting this work. But still, we're going to do that anyway, okay? We're going to make sure we still give you ways of supporting this work. This work is in Christ, not like anything out there, to connect the dots for you, okay? So if you want to donate, go to gatheringofchrist.org/donate, all right? Now, before I segue over, Patreon/ A Gathering 144, and we're going to talk. And we're going to be talking, we're going to have these conversations all the way up and past the election. But make sure that you are a part of the next academy where we dive into, that's right, the fall of the last empire. A teaching like you've never heard from the Gathering of Christ Church, quantifying everything. And we're going to put it into what? study form. Go to historytimes.org to enroll. That academy will start soon. And I want to say, put your prayers out there, brothers and sisters. Our prayers go out for Brother Eric. Well, a lot of y'all didn't know, after I raced from the end of Tabernacles, okay, I left right after the teaching. Well, I had to pray over a brother who him and his wife came to me and said that he has a mass on his brain. He was diagnosed with a mass on his brain. I scurried off. Elder Lawyer and I prayed for this brother on the way out of the Tabernacles. A lot of you don't even know this, but make sure y'all put y'all prayers up for Brother Eric of the New York body, okay, upstate. He just went through and a very successful surgery to get the mass moved off of his brain. And right now he's recovering. Okay, we go from one thing to the next. The Tabernacles, praying. I had to skirt out of there. We prayed over the brother. I told him, listen, you're going to be all right. Okay, don't be anxious about anything. The Most High has it. His wife, I said, listen, don't talk to too many people about it. Don't feed into the negative of what could happen. Okay? Not the negative. You must always think towards healing. There's a process within ourselves that Christ have given us to heal. Okay? What they would like to do is to have us see everything from a negative or grave standpoint. Okay? And through that comes death. No. You should always be encouraged in Christ. We prayed over the brother, Elder Lawyer and I. Right now, he's resting. He's been moved to intensive care after the surgery, but he should stabilize out. And right after he's the Most High healed him, we're going to connect him with Dr. Goodman to make sure he put all the natural nutrients in his body, because sometimes a lot of these things come from, you know, our diets coming up or whatever the case might be. Okay? But they'll never go to the root issue or cause of these things, right? They'll never do that. But we are about healing the nation, okay? So make sure y'all put y'all prayers out for Brother Eric. His family's in our prayers. And I hope to break bread with that brother soon. He's baptized in Christ. And yeah, I wanted to put that out there. So yes. Make sure y'all put y'all prayers out there on the Sabbath for our people. All right. Now, without further ado, let's go over to Patreon and talk. 515-605-9327 for those who would like to come in. We're going in for 1 hour. We're going to talk about this. America is imploding from the inside, folks. Folks, we have no representation. We have no representation. They're brought the idolaters and those who are against God to finish God's people off. But guess what? I'm going to tell you, it's one they didn't bank on protecting us through all of this. And that's Christ. With that, have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow at the Sabbath for those who don't have Patreon. But if you'd like to join me and let's talk about what I've just discussed, come over to Patreon. It's only $5, all right? Shalom. Patreon.com/agathering144. And again, I would like to emphasize that I would love for you all to join the Academy, and we'll be focusing on, in the Academy, the fall of the last empire. And we're going to have a lesson, the laws we must follow. We're going to get back on board with telling everybody exactly not just what's going on, but what is sin and how to avoid sin according to God. It's time. See you over in Patreon. Shalom.
Together our wives and children that sold us. In the belly of these great ships we traveled and fed. By the rivers of Babylon we found our brothers here.